Okay. The fourth pillar of Gandhian vision for society, Satyagraha. Satyagraha is also made of two words. Satya means truth, real, authentic. Like my name, the same word, Sat, Satish, Sat, Satyagraha. Agraha means power, force, insistence, determination, various meanings of the word. Sanskrit language is a very condensed language. In words, lots of meaning. So you have to imagine broad meaning, like you were saying, Kate, you have to have a wide angle when you look at nature. In Sanskrit language, you have to have a wide angle to understand the meaning. So power of truth. Sometimes people have also translated power of truth as power of soul, soul power. Because we hold our truth in our soul, and so soul power, inner power. Now, we have talked about upliftment and well-being of all, which includes humans and nature and animals, everything, Sarvodaya. We talked about organizing that well-being in economic terms at a local level, and also in political terms at local level. But then there are forces which may act against Swadeshi and Swaraj. And forces may try to impose, try to control, try to destroy, like people are destroying our environment, or going to war, or colonizing, or having apartheid, having racialism, having sexism, many things which other people try to control and impose on others. So how do you deal with those things? When people are apathetic, or people are complacent, but more than that, people are aggressive and they want to stop you from your right living and your Swadeshi and your Swaraj. They want to destroy it. Then what you do? And so Gandhi developed this idea. Gandhi believed in non-violence. So non-violence, the supreme principle, organizing principle of all our ideas, Swadeshi, Swaraj, Sarvodaya, all our actions must be rooted, embedded in the principle of non-violence, doing no harm to others. You can have a complete freedom of thought. You can have your own truth. There is no one truth from Gandhian perspective. Everybody has their own truth. And what is truth? Your truth is what you experience, how you experience, the way you experience reality. That is your truth. So we have come here, we have weekend, and 20 people go away with 20 interpretations, 20 truths. So truth, diversity, is as important as biodiversity, cultural diversity, linguistic diversity, religious diversity, truth diversity. But what brings us in common and binds us together is non-violence. So we are united on that principle that I can hold my truth, I can hold my vision, I can hold my utopia, you can hold your vision and your utopia, but we will not harm each other. So without harming each other, if somebody is imposing and harming you and imposing their control, how do you deal with it? So that is where there is a long tradition even in the West, like Henry David Thoreau. He wrote a book called Civil Disobedience. And that's a very old idea. I think it was in the kind of 19th century. Henry David Thoreau lived in 19th century. And Emerson, once when Henry David Thoreau refused to pay tax to the government, he was put in jail because that was his civil disobedience. He wrote a book about it. And Emerson poet came, who was a friend of Henry David Thoreau, to jail to visit him and say, Henry, what are you doing in there? And so Henry David Thoreau asked him, Emerson, what are you doing out there? You should be in here. So that's a civil disobedience, non-violent action. And so Gandhi learned from that, and he said that I am going to non-cooperate. And it was a mass non-cooperation with the British. And that example, others you can take, like in civil rights movement of Martin Luther King in the United States, and an apartheid movement around the world, but for South Africa. So, but in Mahatma Gandhi's case, British colonialism. Now, British power in India was held by, say, about 10,000 British people in India, maximum at any one time, 10,000 people. And Indian population at that time, 300,000. So Gandhi said, how can 10,000 people control 300,000 people?
What do you mean 300 million?
Huh?
300 million?
300 million, that's right. Sorry, 300 million, not 300,000. 300 million people are being ruled by 10,000 people. How can that be possible? It's because we are cooperating with them. We are working for them. We are participating in their colonialism and imperialism on us. So what we are going to do, we are not going to harm any English people. We don't want to harm anybody. We don't want to kill them. We don't want to harm them. They are our friends. They are humans. We love them. We love the British. But it's not good for the British to colonize us, as it is not good for us to be colonized. So we are going to liberate India, and in the process, we are also going to liberate the British from their own imperialism and colonialism. So we love the British, but we are not going to participate in their colonialism. We don't like colonialism. We don't like, and Gandhi even said that even if the Indians were doing colonizing like the British are doing, I will oppose the same way. So it's not against the British. It's against the system, the colonialism, the imperialism, the power over other people, some people exercising. That is what we are opposing. So we are not against the British. That's the first fundamental statement. We are not against white people. That was the first fundamental statement of Martin Luther King. We are not against anything, any people. We are against the system. So like, don't hate the sinner, but hate the sin. That's the sort of thing. And so, how do we do it? First of all, we are not going to cooperate in the process of colonizing us. And so we will withdraw. One most important thing is why British are in India. Because they want natural resources. Most prominently, cotton. All the cotton was grown in India and woven, spun, made clothes in India. But British, you may remember those who have read British colonial history, cut the fingers of the weavers so they cannot weave the clothes. And they took all the land and they created a landlord system. And if there was a Hindu community, they imposed a landlord from Muslim community. And where there was a Muslim community, they imposed a landlord from the Hindu community and say, you take the tax, you take the cotton, we pay them, but that cotton will be baled and exported to Lancashire. So that was one big example of why British were in India. Tea doesn't matter because it's not everybody's kind of need. So you can export tea, Gandhi said. You can take anything which is you don't have and we have surplus. But if you take our cotton and destroy our industry and make poor people poor, and the weavers and spinners, they're all out of work, that's not. So that's one example he took. It was indigo, another example where British were sort of colonizing in the name of indigo. And so Gandhi said, first of all, we will spin the spinning wheel. So that's a satyagraha. Constructive, positive action. Not just opposing, but we will learn to make our own clothes. Because for 200 years, the industry was destroyed. And so people had completely forgotten. Gandhi wanted to find a spinning wheel, and he could not find. It was so bad. One woman, after about 6 months of search, one woman said, I've got one spinning wheel in my attic. And she wrote a letter to Gandhi. I've got one spinning wheel which my grandmother used to spin. It's still sitting there. Do you want it? You are looking for a spinning wheel. So Gandhi sent somebody to that home and that village and brought the spinning wheel. And then he designed a spinning wheel himself based on that. And so he started to spin. And so he created positive action that we will start to grow our cotton and not export, not sell it to British companies and make our own clothes. That was one example. Then Satyagraha also came. The first most important Satyagraha came when the British imposed tax on salt. And salt is necessary in India because we lose more salt with sweat. And therefore, Indian poor people, everybody have to eat some salt. And so salt is very cheap or anybody can make salt. And so when they put tax on salt, Gandhi said, we are not going to cooperate with that. So it's unjust law. So he walked, Julia, from Ahmedabad, Sabarmati Ashram, and when he started, he was alone. He announced it, and the next day, 5 people, 10 people, 20 people, 100 people. By the time he arrived, about how long is it? About 100 miles?
It's 287.
287 miles he walked. And when he arrived at the sea to make the salt, there were 10,000 people with him walking. He caught like a fire. It's a big action happening. And day by day, people are gathering. News is spreading. And the British are nervous. What is going to happen? What is going to happen? And so he arrives there. The police is there. The district magistrate is there. The civil servants, the white people there. And Gandhi said, welcome, welcome. Police, welcome. Come. I'm going to make salt. And he take the water and he makes the salt and he's arrested. 10,000 people make the salt. 10,000 people are arrested. Then those places in the jail, where do you put? So you have to put marquees. And where do you feed them? Anyway, Gandhi was brought to the magistrate after being arrested, like Bertrand Russell. And magistrate knew Gandhi, who is a Gandhi, his history in South Africa, where he had protested against the racialism and the kind of apartheid. And his name was all over. He had gone all around India. He's a well-known person, saintly, wise, non-violent, compassionate, kind, such a person, very big name. He being arrested, 10,000 people with him being arrested. So magistrate says, Mr. Gandhi, do you feel guilty? Do you plead guilty? Do you plead guilty?
Yes.
Yeah. Gandhi said, yes, my lord. I know your law and I have broken it. And it's an unjust law. So I plead guilty. So then I have to send you to jail. Yes, my lord, I know, I'm a lawyer. Give me the harshest punishment you have in your books. Mr. Gandhi, can you not withdraw your movement? No. Until your law is withdrawn, I'm not going to withdraw my movement. I'm going to protest. So, give me the punishment. So, Gandhi, I have to send you to jail. Don't worry, I will go to prison like a bride goes to wedding chamber. It's in the court. So, magistrate is very kind, in his words at least, gentleman. He says, I hope at the time there was a king. His Majesty's government releases you beforehand and things are sorted out. But for the time being, I'm sending you to jail because I have to do it. So he said, no, don't worry that government releases me any earlier than your sentence. I'm happy to be in jail. And as I said, I'm happy to go to prison like a bride go to wedding chamber until your unjust law is withdrawn. But I will not harm any British people. I take suffering upon myself. I take responsibility and I will suffer. That's a sacrifice. True meaning of sacrifice. Voluntarily, lovingly, kindly, I will take suffering upon myself. I'll be in prison. I'll follow all the rules. I'll have prison clothes. I'll have prison bowl. I'll go in the queue. I'll eat food like all the prisoners, criminals take. Everything I'll do exactly. I will take suffering upon myself, but I will not impose any harm or any suffering or any difficulty on any English people. I just want them to withdraw the unjust law. That was Satyagraha. That you don't harm, your opponent is not your enemy. Your opponent is misguided. So you are acting to transform and arouse their heart and change their heart. And when the change of heart happens, then your enemy becomes your friend. You are not your enemy, it's your only opponent. And so with that kind of compassionate heart, Gandhi went to jail. And not only once, but altogether, Gandhi was in jail over the history of India, Indian independence. And you have seen how that Salt March happened and how the people were beaten. You've seen the Gandhi film. They were beaten by the police, and Indian police. The British employed Indian men, Indian police beating other Indians because they were making salt. And so they all went to jail, and tens of thousands of people were in jail. And that was a great satyagraha. In the end, the British withdrew the tax, and it was a success. And so, and then one after another, there was a big massacre in Amritsar. Again, something like 10,000 people were shot in this all-walled garden where they were holding this meeting for the independence of India, awareness creation. And they were all alarmed citizens, and they were shot. And so that was another time when Gandhi had a satyagraha. So altogether, 12 years in jail, Gandhi went. But still, if there was any violence against the British, he will withdraw the movement. He will say, we are not having any movement if there is any violence to the British. So do not commit any violence against your opponent. Take violence upon yourself, voluntarily, lovingly, sacrificingly. And so if there is any unjust order, whether from the government or from industrialists or from business people, or like workers going on strike, they should go on strike only lovingly and not say that we are against you. We are against the system. We are against the law, not against British people or against the industrialists. This is what Vinoba did when I was telling the story of Vinoba asking landless people to work with the landlords and landlords to work with the landless. So you are not enemies. You have to work together. And if there's unjust order, withdraw your cooperation, withdraw your services, and be prepared to suffer. Be prepared to take suffering, hardship upon yourself. Sometimes our protesters forget that idea. They protest, but they are still kind of a bit aggressive. Gandhi is not aggressive. Gandhi is kind, compassionate. He's not against people. He's against the system. So in nutshell, that is, in our life, we can practice satyagraha. That's the truth. Your truth. You say, I will insist on my truth. This is my truth. I want to live in just, fair, compassionate order, where there is equality and respect for all human beings, and no one human being exploiting other human being, or no human society as a group exploiting animals. So Gandhi can take action against exploitation of animals or exploitation of nature. If you are destroying rainforest, Gandhi can take action against the destruction of rainforest or overfishing the oceans. Anything of that kind, or global warming, climate change, he can take satyagraha action. So taking action and putting your body where your mouth is and where ideas is, and going to jail or being beaten or fasting. Fasting is another one. So when there was a Hindu Muslim riots at the time of India's independence, Gandhi went on hunger strike, fast. Say, I will fast and die until Hindus and Muslims stop killing each other. So that's the kind of satyagraha. And in the end, they stopped. The riot came to an end after something like 20 days of his fasting. And both Hindus and Muslim leaders came together to Gandhi and say, we have made promise, we have asked all our people to stop fighting and please end your fast. We are going to live in peace. So now in India, there are more Muslims than in Pakistan. Pakistan is a Muslim nation, India is a secular country, but still we have more Muslims in India than in Pakistan. Pakistan was made as a homeland for the Muslims, but still Hindus and Muslims largely can live in peace, largely. Very occasional little skirmishes or violence happens, but largely they are living in peaceful way for since 1947. For 70 years, Hindus and Muslims, and quite often we have Muslim president and Hindu prime minister. We have many Muslim ministers in the government. There are places reserved in the parliament. There are places reserved in universities for untouchables as well as for the Muslims. And so largely there is a secular government thanks to Mahatma Gandhi's work. And Mahatma Gandhi appointed an untouchable Dr. Ambedkar to be the head of the Constitution Assembly and a Constitution Committee to write the new Constitution for India, where untouchability and discrimination against the Muslims or against any minority will be illegal and banned. And it was untouchable who was the head of the Constitution Assembly, and it was on Gandhi's insistence. So he was against untouchability. So he was not just against the British, because quite often people think that his campaign was only against the British. He was against unjust order wherever it is, perpetuated by Indians or foreigners. And he said that I don't want brown Sahib taking over from the white Sahib and becoming the rulers like the white Sahib. I want a different kind of Swaraj, Swadeshi, local government and equality, and people treating with respect each other and living in harmony with each other. That is the kind of idea of Sarvodaya. So he wants to create a Sarvodaya as an ideal society, and the means to get to Sarvodaya is Swadeshi, local economy, and a Swaraj where everybody is respected, and a local politics. And then if there's any problem comes and opposition comes and we are being imposed and controlled by unjust order, then we use Satyagraha. So it's a kind of order. The Satyagraha is the ideal, Swadeshi and Swaraj is the system that we want to create, and Satyagraha is means to overcome any unjust order. Completely non-violent system. And this is what, when I started the first evening, I said to you that this differs from the Marxist, socialist Marxist system, and differs from the capitalist Adam Smith system. It's a completely new vision where humanity can live at ease with each other and with itself and with nature, and do not have more participation and more control at a local level. So you are not controlled by far away, distant powers, because you participate in your own economy and your own politics and your own life. You are in charge. You are the CEO of your life, and people are in charge of their community, and they don't have to be enslaved by either Indian rulers or British rulers. So that was his vision. And Vinoba started that movement which I briefly mentioned of the land reform. I must say that Gandhian vision did not quite get translated into Indian governing system, because Mr. Nehru and the Congress party, which came to power, majority of the leaders were very Western minded. They were educated at Cambridge and LSE and so on, and they were very much touched by more Marxist socialist order. So Nehru paid good lip service to Gandhi, was a friend of Gandhi. He worked with Gandhi for the independence movement. But when he actually came to Swadeshi and Swaraj, he took more Western model and disagreed with Gandhi. And unfortunately, Gandhi lived only August, September, October, November, December, January. 5 months after the independence of India. Only 5 months. So he did not get opportunity and chance to work with the Indians and influence and bring Swadeshi and Swaraj ideas into India. And once he was killed, then the education system remained the same. They did not change. The bureaucracy remained the same. The military remained the same. We changed the flag and we changed the white rulers and we placed the brown rulers in their place. And flag is changed, but education system, bureaucracy, civil service, military, police, Swadeshi Swaraj was not implemented in India. I have to say that. However, within Indian grassroots level, there are many people practicing Swadeshi and Swaraj at a local level and campaigning, organizing, managing. So there are lots of places where you can see Swaraj and Swadeshi in practice. People doing it themselves, but government not so much. Now in the modern times, we have somebody, Modi, who is from the same area, Gujarat, as Gandhi came from. And he comes from very humble background, but still his idea is industrialization and catching up. They are under pressure. If any one country wants to be Swaraj and Swadeshi, you cannot survive, it seems, in this modern world, because all the pressures from America and WTO and World Bank and UN and all the kind of world system is such that the pressures on nations, even a small country like Bhutan, where gross national happiness is they are pursuing, but pressures are very strong from China, from India, modernization, and the education is conditioning people's mind and they want modern. And so the actual implementation is not so hopeful and positive. However, at least ideals are there, and when we need them, we can take that path. So that's Satyagraha, briefly.